Hey guys, it's Paul here with Toolmetrics, and I did a couple videos on the Laguna 1216 lathe when it first came out, when I first got one. And I've had a couple follow-up questions asking, what is the largest bowl that you could turn on a 1216? And so I could go out and measure the capacity and give you a response, but I really wanted to put this video together and kind of give you a look kind of more experientially on what it would be like to turn a bowl that is at nearly the maximum capacity. So this is a chunk of butternut that is 14 and a half inches diameter by 4 inches deep. And so you could, in theory, go up to 16 inches turning outboard on the 1216, but you have to leave a little bit of room for clearance. And this would be about the max blank that you could turn on the 10-inch extension. I have the 20-inch extension here, which gives you a little bit more wiggle room as you're maneuvering the banjo out in front of the blank. With the 10-inch extension, you could do it, but things are going to be pretty tight. So I've got the articulating arm extension on the banjo slash tool rest setup, and I think that should be really nice to be able to turn this big chunk of wood. The standard tool rest that comes with the 1216 I don't think is long enough to get inside of a large bowl like this. So I've got a couple of options I'm going to try. I've got a J rest that's designed for Midi lathes. I think it's, I don't know, I'll provide you a source in the description down below. I think it's maybe 8 inches or 9 inches. And if that doesn't do it, I've got a much larger one. These are both from Robust. And if this isn't cutting it, I'll switch over and put the big one on. But those are things that you're going to probably want to do if you're going to turn big bowls. I would also say that if you're going to turn a lot of big bowls, you're probably going to want to step up to a bigger lathe. The 1216 is capable of turning a bowl this size, but it's not going to be super fast, and it's going to take quite a bit of finesse. I would also suggest if you are just getting a 1216 and are not experienced with bowl turning, don't start with one this size. You're going to want to build up to it. It's going to take some skill and finesse to turn a bowl this size, particularly on a lathe with 1 horsepower. So start smaller, 6, 8 inch bowls and work your way up to something like this. Also, an important thing to keep in mind is when you're turning outboard on the 1216, you're not able to use the tailstock to engage the bowl. I like doing that on large bowls on my bigger lathe because it stabilizes the blank and it's also a good safety precaution, so it holds things in place. So be aware of that and be careful. I'm going to use a 4-jaw chuck. This is a Nova G3, and I have the 130 millimeter jaw set. I use these jaws on my bigger 5-inch chuck. We'll see how they do on here. I think they fit. Everything in the Nova family lines up fine across the product line, but I think they're more designed for big chucks. So I put those on because I want as big a bite as I can. I'm going to create a good sized tenon on the bottom of this, and I want a good sized bite on that bowl when I turn it around, particularly because I don't have any engagement from the tailstock. And so because of that, this is going to give me, I think, a lot better control than having the standard size jaws in the G3. I think it would be okay with the standard jaws in the G3, but this is going to increase my confidence in both quality and safety that bowl is going to stay on the lathe. Let's see. I also have the lathe weighted down. I didn't have sandbags, but I had some water softener salt. So I have 4 bags, 40 pounds each, so 160 pounds of weight on here to stabilize the lathe. I think you could do it without that, but I'm expecting the lathe to jump around a little bit, particularly until this big chunk of wood is round. I'm going to start out in the low range. The 1216 has 3 different speed ranges. The low range goes up to, I think, 525 RPM. that should be sufficient until it gets round. Then I'm going to see if I can switch gears and if it has enough power in that mid-speed range to work properly without bogging down too much. And if it bogs down too much, I'm going to shift down to the lower gear range, and that'll give me the low-end torque that I need. So anyway, let me get set up and we'll get the process started. All right, so as expected, it's bogging down a bit, and I'm not leaning in very hard, but it is able to handle, it has enough torque to round this out, and so far, I would say it's moving along okay. I'm going to just adjust tool rest a little bit and start working around this. Perfect.
All right, I switched to the 1/2-inch gouge and thinking that it might help me progress a little bit more quickly on the scooping operation. Seems to be going fine. I'm going to do a pass with the 5/8 gouge just to see if that makes any difference. You could see it kind of bogs down a little bit when I'm on the outside, you know, maybe third of this. But overall, not too bad. Just one tip, you see the way that I'm doing it, progressing by pushing through each time rather than sweeping across each time. You're dealing with less end grain when you do that, and you'll find that it moves along more quickly if you do that. It's getting to be about that time to check it for wall thickness and consistency. I think we're pretty close. And a little thicker on the bottom. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to just grab a scraper and kind of sweeten it up on the inside. Let me just pull it off the chuck. That's that. That went quicker and easier than I thought it would, honestly. For a 1 horsepower lathe, I expected more bogging. Now, granted, this is wet wood green. You would probably experience a little bit more bogging if you were using dry wood, no doubt. So keep that in mind. So, not bad. I'm really pleased with it. One thing to keep in mind when you're turning outboard on the 1216, because you don't have a tailstock, you don't have a good way to turn that tenon off and flatten the bottom out. So I turned this tenon the size that I would want for a bowl this size, and that's the way that this is going to be. That's going to be the foot of this bowl. So if you turn a smaller tenon on there, you're either going to have to clean it off the lathe, cut it off, sand, whatever. If you're doing recess, if you do a recess that you mount your chuck into that, then you don't have a problem. Then that'll sit just fine on your table. So anyway, let me know if you have questions, and hope you'll subscribe to the Tool Metrics channel and come back for more wood turning, woodworking, DIY, and tool related videos.